Hi all, welcome back to another podcast. Today it's just going to be me and Kanishka, and we'll be talking about reflexes and how to improve them. Before we get started, I think it's important to explain what happens in reflex action.
Essentially, in reflex action, there's a very simple nervous pathway called a reflex arc. So it starts off with receptors being excited, and that's by some sort of sensor. So that can be a flame or light, for example. And then, so muscular movement is controlled by a neuron. So the sensor creates electrical impulses in a sensory neuron, which travels across the sensory neuron across the synapse through neurotransmitters into a relay neuron, which is in the central nervous system, which in this case would be the spinal cord, and then across that relay neuron, across another synapse using again neurotransmitters into a motor neuron, and that motor neuron causes a reaction in a muscle. So let's say in the case of your hand being over a flame, it would cause the contraction of muscles within the hand to withdraw your hand from being near that flame. So if we look at examples like the knee-jerk reflex, which involves a sudden kicking movement of your lower leg after the tendon just below your kneecap has been tapped, that follows the exact same path, and doctors often trigger this reflex to test the function of your nervous system. So if the reaction is exaggerated or absent, it may indicate a damage to the central nervous system. But the key thing with reflexes is that, unlike with most muscular actions, they're not the signals don't enter the brain or aren't controlled by the brain. It simply stays in the central nervous system and goes through the spine, so it's not regulated in the same way or controlled in the same way, and thus you don't think about it necessarily, and that's why they can happen so naturally. A lot of reflexes do go completely unnoticed because they don't actually involve a visible or sudden movement. So bodily functions such as digestion or blood pressure control are all regulated by reflexes, and these reflexes are known as autonomic reflexes. Um, so yeah, that's essentially what a reflex action is.
The main factor that affects reflex action is age. Physical changes in nerve fibers slow down the speed of electrical conduction from neurons,
Yeah.
and the parts of the brain involved in motor control lose cells over time. But the effect of age on reflexes and reaction time varies greatly from person to person. You can actually slow down or even reverse the effects of aging by staying physically active.
So how can we potentially because I found during my research that there's some methods where you can actually modify the brain using like science and surgery to enhance reflexes. How does that happen, and is that feasible?
So I think the main way of doing this is to improve the passive flow of electrical current. We can insulate the axonal membrane, the axon being the head of the neuron, which
Mm.
reduces the ability of current to leak out of the axon and thus increasing the distance along the axon that a local current can flow passively through.
Mm.
So this strategy is evident when we do the myelination of axons. And the biggest factor, I think, is the sleeplessness. And a sleepless night could impair your reflexes as much as having a cognizable amount of alcohol. And this is because your brain cells are trying to sleep, essentially, and trying to get back the sleep that they missed out on. And researchers found that sleep deprivation can make brain cells sluggish and communication slow, according to a study published in Nature Medicine. And this means the implications are huge. So if you're driving on the highway and a car stalls in front of you, you might not notice it fast enough. And I think that's where we should be mindful of the benefits and the drawbacks of reflex actions as well.
Yeah. Um, yes. So I found a couple of other ways in which you can increase reflex speed, like right now. So staying relaxed is something that's very important. Like you mentioned, sleeping a lot. Tight contracted muscles are always going to be slower to move, and that's why often in combat sports like boxing and things, we're told to stay relaxed repeatedly so that our muscles and reflexes can occur as quickly as possible. A lot of you may know that from personal experience, and we can do this by meditation, being more mindful. There's lots of apps and things out there to help you focus and stay calm in certain situations. Just a few minutes of meditation each day can really help as well. And in a situation where you know you're going to need your reflexes, like a sports game or something like that, focusing on breathing can really help to just relax your body and relax your muscles. a study from Leiden University in Amsterdam have also found from testing on multiple subjects that spinach and eggs and foods in general with tyrosine are extremely helpful in actually improving reflex time. The actual science behind it is not fully known as of yet, but they found that when subjects ingested such foods, their reaction times increased dramatically, which I found quite interesting. Like you mentioned, video games are very good, and that kind of links to training, like you said, muscle memory, but also it improves the fast twitch muscle fibers and gets those neural pathways activated on a more regular basis, which can assist them in working a lot quicker. And sprinting and doing running can, again, like with all other aspects of training, improve fast twitch muscle fibers, which is something that's very useful. So I think those are the main ways.
Yeah, and I know we touched upon it a little bit, but what do you think are the main benefits, and are there any drawbacks to having fast reflexes?
Yeah, so there are quite a lot of benefits. So athletes, especially with quick reflexes, find it far easier. So if you look to cricket, for example, in slip cordon to take catches coming at a high speed, you require good reflex reactions, and training those can always help in those kind of situations. If you look to, for example, another sport, tennis, when you have to react to a different ball position and it's out of your control, getting faster reactions is very, very useful. Equally in boxing and combat sports, being able to react to your opponent's position and just getting those neural pathways used to being used to reacting to different events is key. Military personnel and people in fields of combat also require good reflex reactions, as it enables them to react to oncoming attack and combat it as well as possible. So essentially, their faster reactions enable you to stay alive for longer. Again, that links to like your fight or flight response, in which you can have quicker decision making, all of that stuff. And additionally, on a more basic like day-to-day level, this sounds almost futile, but let's say you're about to spill something, fast reflexes can prevent you from dropping such a thing, and those are good. So yeah, to summarize, I'd say it's been a bit of a short podcast, but there's reflex is obviously highly important, whether it's for sports and athletes or for military personnel or just for day-to-day life. There are multiple different uses. You can train your reflexes as is in many ways. For example, something as simple as dropping a penny and forcing yourself to catch it with the same hand, or getting someone to stand behind you, throw a ball onto a wall, and then take a catch, which you're not going to know which direction the ball is going. They all help your reflex arc and get more used to performing such reflex reactions. Reflex reactions are vital for us in day-to-day life. There are many different types, as I mentioned, whether it be autonomic reflexes, which go somewhat unnoticed, or more obvious ones, such as pulling your hand away from a flame or something like that. I think they're quite crucial, and I think the prospect of potentially being able to enhance them using the methods Ashish mentioned and science and technology is quite exciting.
Anyway, thank you for listening. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow our Twitter and Instagram for news about upcoming podcasts, fun facts, and more. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.